Hello, Rachel. How are you doing?
Hi, Ryan. I'm going okay. How are you?
Oh, I am feeling excited. Oh, I'm so excited because
I'm glad one of us is.
Oh, come on, yummy Rachel. Listen to me, spectacular Ryan, as we delve into the 5th season of Babylon 5. We're here. We made it. There were doubters.
I know that you can't see them, but just know that I'm giving Ryan the finger in the room. Both of them are up.
Did you
right
hear it?
now.
Did you hear it? Sexual Rachel is giving me the finger, so there you go. So now, everyone, you're listening to the rambunctious YumYumPodcast, the podcast that goes through episodes of science fiction television, one episode at a time, and currently you are listening to our coverage of Babylon 5, where we are going through it as a rewatch, so that means we have seen the series before, and we're going back and looking over it and see what it's like on the rewatch and critiquing it and analyzing it. And, ooh, what an exciting time. We're in the final season of the series. We're in a season that has a reputation, one that is divisive to say the least. New network, new characters, new stuff. Oh, so much to go over, Rachel. But for everyone who's tuning in, could you please just give them a new way of describing the Yum Yum moment from Star Trek Discovery? And why we're named after it.
Do I have to?
I couldn't quite hear you, cautious Rachel.
Do I have to?
Yes, you do, rambunctious Rachel.
Reluctant.
Oh, somber Rachel. Sorry, we're getting this wrong because Byron says that, but the thing that makes it important is he says the in front of it. The somber David. Like he's the somber David. There's other somber Davids, but he's the somber David. We're not the Yum Yum Podcast, we're just Yum Yum Podcast. I made sure to not put a the in front of it because I didn't want to claim that we were the Yum Yum Podcast. We're just a Yum Yum Podcast.
But we've got the title of the Yum Yums.
We are the Yum Yums for our listeners, but why is that? Why?
I thought I got away with it.
Why are we all so yum centric on this podcast?
Because you are devilish, and you decided.
Yes, I'm devilish, Ryan. Go on, angelic Rachel, the angelic Rachel.
Oh, no.
One time, one of our friends said that she looked like the Virgin Mary, Rachel. Rachel looks like the Virgin Mary, which isn't true. She wasn't virginal when that was said, but go on.
Because you can look virginal?
No, but you know.
It was because I was wearing a hoodie.
Oh, so that's why you look virginal.
Yeah.
Hear that, hoodie wearers? You're virgins.
Mm-hmm.
And or gamers.
Yep, sitting outside of a college bar.
Yep, and I wasn't there. She was sitting with two guys at a college bar when we were dating, and I wasn't there. Oh, my alpha male alert is going off. But Rachel, you're sidestepping. Devilish, yes, I am. But why?
Didn't even try for that one.
Yes, but why Yum Yum?
Because you are devilish, and you decided that we just had to make a podcast about Star Trek Discovery and to name ourselves after a particular line of dialogue uttered in season 2, which was Yum Yum.
Why is that line so important to us? And don't just say me, because it is both of us. Like, this had a very profound effect.
I've been dragged into it.
She's been dragged into it. But in all seriousness, when it did happen, could you go over your reaction a little bit to it?
I was in awe and disbelief.
Why? It's just quirky, funny writing, Rachel. Why are you taking it so serious?
Because it made no fucking sense.
There it is. The context it was in made no sense.
Fuckings.
Yes, it is for kings. Now you've opened that doorway. We can bring it back on the pod. I've been holding off from it for a while. People, if you've noticed, Rachel has said context a lot over the last few episodes, and I've been a good boy. But now permission is to be the bad.
No.
To be the bad Ryan.
Now it's the phase where I get to do it to you.
Universal laws for lackeys. Context is for kings.
Who had Yum Yum energy in the season 5 premiere episode of Babylon 5?
Byron.
Great answer. I'm going to counter you though. Special Simon. That kid was posing. He was licking his lips literally at times. He projected flowers into a sexy lady's brain. And I wanted him to project the Yum Yum moment into my brain with his special powers. Now, I understand Byron because he says so many fucking wild things. But
almost every single thing that comes out of his mouth.
But let me counter that. Every single time the camera cuts to Special Byron. Special Byron. Special.
Yes. See, even you are slipping into it. Even you are sucked into the yum-yumness of Byron.
Let's be fair. It's because we know Byron's going to be here more. Special Simon, every time we cut to Special Simon, there was a reaction like the yum yum moment from both of us when we both just went, right? Now, maybe I'm being unfair because I know that Special Simon will never come back, so this is his only opportunity to get the prestigious Yum Yum Energy Award from us, the official yummers, but I think he won it in the bag. This kid had the Leo haircut. He had these blue eyes. He mean mugging to the camera with fuck me eyes energy. I don't know what was going on with this kid. Am I wrong? He was given these looks like, yeah, I'm sexy. It's like, dude, no, stop it. Stop it, Special Simon.
You're projecting that onto a child, and that's a little uncomfortable, Ryan.
I am right, people. This kid, we'll get into the spotlight, but this kid, he was given a fucking crazy performance, and I think it was Yum Yum worthy.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I just don't think it was as sexual as...
This kid was definitely like, yeah, I'm sexy. What are you going to do about it? He was posing. He was like a model. He was constantly doing blue steel looks, pouting his lips, making sure that he had the best. It was like watching Shatner in TOS.
We don't do the normal descriptions here on Yum Yum. We do the DVD brochures description or booklet.
There better be a booklet for the animated movie that's coming out. I want to read a description from that. Better be. JMS, I'm watching. I'm waiting.
No Compromises is the title of this episode, which is episode 1 of season 5. Meet Elizabeth Lockley.
I will.
That's it.
No, it isn't. Come on.
That's the description. That's all I'm reading. You want to fucking read the rest? You do it. You interrupted.
I'm respectful. I wouldn't call her meat. That was my second option of what I could have said.
Like, I don't know if the listeners are up for this energy, but I certainly am not. You need to tone it down if you want to keep me in here, mister.
Oh, I can't. It's Yum Yum energy. I can't control it. Captain, I can't control it. But keep going. We meet Elizabeth Lockley. Meet Elizabeth Lockley.
The station's new commander. An uninvited guest surfaces at Sheridan's inauguration. A hovering fighter craft pilot who has his weaponry locked and loaded.
Oh, that's it. No mention of Byron and his band of merry little freaks. So, No Compromises, the 5th season. I have never enjoyed this episode. I find it to be the weakest season premiere of any of Babylon 5, and I still hold that true now. I don't think it really gets me... Or really gets the viewer...
Is it weaker than...
Yes.
The Gathering?
Oh, that's not a season premiere. It is unfair to compare.
I think it isn't a premiere, but it is an introduction.
It is better than The Gathering.
Okay.
Simply because it's 45 minutes and I understand what's happening better.
Yeah. I just wanted to add that in.
But No Compromises I find to be a rather slow, plodding, lackluster episode held together by the intrigue of new characters and new status quo.
Good performances.
And some good new performances, like from new
dissing
people.
Simon?
Oh, I wouldn't diss Special Simon, but
he's iconic.
We have to catch people up on what's happening and what is different now. And I viscerally remember reacting negatively to Lockley, and we'll talk about Lockley in a moment, but it was not a great starting off point for season 5, and I still think that right now. I like season 5 overall. There's many people who hate season 5, often say that it is unneeded or it takes away and it is bad, possibly the worst season for many people, but
wow.
I like it. It has some of my favorite episodes and moments in the series overall, and
it's required for Day of the Dead alone.
Well, we'll get to Day of the Dead one of these days, but there is merit because also it has some of the worst stuff in Babylon 5, and this season premiere highlights some of that. And No Compromises.
It's not a surprise when certain things happen the way that they do after.
No Compromises is simplistic, dull, and kind of silly and cheesy at the same time. It leaves me cold when I watch it. I don't hate it. I do roll my eyes a lot, and the anger comes in knowing where certain things go that are brought in here. Like when Byron first shows up as a little freak, I just go, no.
But some of it is fun. Like, there are moments of redemption. Everything with Jakar is fucking banging. I love it. I love all of Jakar that we get in this episode. And it helps that, like, Andreas is having so much fun with, like, giddy Jakar.
For this being a premiere episode of a season, as well as this being the last one, the last stretch of the show, what has been your overall feelings towards No Compromises?
It's fine. I never get drawn into the episode. Like, even on the first watch, I was like, who the fuck is this bitch? What the fuck is going on? Why are they doing it this way? And then on subsequent viewings, like, oh, why is Byron here already? Is something that I often think to myself when we watch No Compromises. And then I think, well, season 4's behind us now.
Is it always like this around here?
No. Well, actually, yes. It's hectic, ma'am.
Well, a hectic station is the first sign of a poorly run station. We'll change that.
I've got everyone standing by in CNC waiting to meet you as soon as you're settled in.
Good. I want to jump right in.
We have new credits that is a compilation of important moments and lines of dialogue that we've seen over the last 4 years, and a more triumphant score. The music is very much a fanfare. It's swelling. It's very much saying, we did it.
Yep.
And I like season 5's intro credits.
And we're building something new. That's an important aspect of the credits of this season for me, is that here's our history and we're building towards something, which is quite different than season 4, where it also had that aspect of it being shared amongst the characters, of them each performing a little section of the sort of monologue that goes over
Season 4,
the opening
everyone had a
credits.
voice
Yeah.
in it. While here, it was everyone's voices that we've heard throughout the show speak
the
for what it
echo.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
To get to hear some of these moments that meant so much to us also be set in stone in the show, as these were turning points. These were pivotal to what we created here in
And
Babylon 5.
I
And
also-
it's validating, but also makes you feel a lot of emotions, that twinge of sorrow that, oh, this is coming to an end. Here's where we started. Here's all the things we've gone through. And now we're entering the final chapter of this saga that we've been on. And it does make every episode as they go along have a bit more weight to them. The intro credits do a lot of work when you put it in the grander context of what this series is. If you watch it as its own thing, isolated, it's fine. It's fine. The music is a little bit too a little bit too Renaissance fair for my taste, but this isn't something that you're supposed to just clip on its own and watch on its own. You're supposed to think about it in relationship to the series that you have been watching for the last several years. And how many shows do that alone? There's breakdowns online of the opening credits sequences to many shows, and not too many of those series with those opening credits have them be so pivotal to the relationship that we have had with the series over the years. I mean, what do you think about that?
It's an effective use of them as a staple part of the show. We get that each episode, and it sort of builds in to the framework of each episode, that reflective nature.
We keep circling back to where we started to where we are now. And to really tie this together even more nicely is the director of No Compromises, is Janet Greek. Janet Greek was one of the best directors on Babylon 5 in the first 2 seasons. She, in my opinion, was the person who helped capture the potential of what Babylon 5 could be. She directed And the Sky Full of Stars, which from just a visual standpoint was the first episode of the series that just left you sitting back in your seat going, well, now this is a science fiction show. Now this is a series that has so much that you could do. And every time she came on to direct an episode, she would just keep topping herself in this way, and not even having to be as abstractly fanciful as And the Sky Full of Stars, but she would be given the big episodes. When you saw the name Janet Greek appear on the screen, you knew you knew deep down that this was going to be an important episode for the show. And after season 2, she left. She wasn't here on Babylon 5. We got more directors that took over with David J. Eagle and Jesus Trevino and so on and so forth, Michael Vejar, and she was working on other projects. I think she also had some personal stuff going on in life. But I am always moved when we start the final season and Janet Greek's name shows up in the credits again, and she's here, she's back. And although I don't find No Compromises to be a particularly good episode, her direction is good as usual. And it's just feels like a perfect sense of continuity and harmony that the person, in my opinion, and I think in many viewers' opinions, that helped really forge the series into what we've enjoyed all of these years, has come back at the end to help finish it off as well. I'm always touched by that. I mean, you want to talk a bit about Janet Greek, because we from time to time do talk about the directors, and when we started this podcast, we would always talk about Janet Greek because she really did a lot of work. So what are your feelings on her overall, her episodes, and her being back in the final season?
I like that she's back, and I think that the direction helps this episode a lot. That's not a fault that we have with this one. And it is interesting to have her back helming an episode that is redirecting the show when her vision and style was fundamental in creating the sort of early version of Babylon 5.
That's a really good point. And I know with a lot of TV direction, you have in your production your stable of directors and you have guest directors come in, and most of the time, say in Star Trek, for instance, they just get given a random script to direct. And maybe you'll have those directors really champion a certain story they want to get, but there's no guarantee that they'll be given it. But with Janet Greek, I don't know the exact relationship she had with the production overall, but it really comes across to me that JMS, whenever he needed someone to manage to grab the horns of this show and steer it in a direction that it's needed, Janet Greek was always called upon to do that. She, as a person who's on the set, giving these actors direction, getting the camera setups and all of that, there's just this inherent level of trust from the people working on the show that Janet Greek is the person that we go to if we need the show
to JMS, but obviously she worked really well with the DP.
Yeah, John C. Flynn III, who, again, he was also a director like that. He has some bad episodes, but he also directed the best episode of the show, so what can you do? But I'm just so glad to see her again, and I wanted to make sure that we stopped off to talk about that because it's something that matters in this series, that we, even in this 5th season, which is tumultuous, it has peaks and valleys, the people working on it clearly have the passion for it. This is not a lifeless season as many people say it is. I can see why, but I just don't feel it in my heart. And especially when you do have an old familiar face coming back and getting back on the saddle again. Something that stinks, just want to get out of the way right now, is Sheridan's goatee. This is a petty thing to bring up, but boy, do I hate it.
The beard was better.
The goatee is, you know, when a show gets good, and sometimes you can point to a visual change as an example of like when Riker's beard, or Sisko's goatee and bald head, or when Janeway gets the bob haircut. It's little.
It forever annoys me that they have an episode where she's got the haircut
and then it goes away,
and then it comes back, and they make you think about her cutting her hair.
I mean, Lockley has like 3 different hairstyles in this one episode, so it's fine. But there are always those visual things that we, as people who watch these shows, point to as tentpole moments of when the quality got better. Oh, when the CGI looked like this, or when they got the new uniforms, or when this cast member joined, or whatever it is. But then, on what I think is a far more rare occasion, but it does happen, the ones where visually you can point to and say, that's when the show's bad. And I have pointed to Sheridan's goatee as the bad era for his character specifically.
Oh, yeah.
And and the show as well. And thoughts, goatee?
Not a huge fan. Not 100% on board with the statement that, like, that's the visual marker that is the turning point. Because there's a lot of good in season 5.
Yes,
it's like a marker of him becoming president. And he does a lot of important things when he has that job. But overall, we tend to note his fuck-ups more than anything else. And that's like...
He screws up a lot in season 5.
Yeah, he makes a lot of mistakes.
Because he's dumb.
He's so fucking dumb. Sometimes he's just as dumb as bricks, and we'll get into his major dumb decision in this particular episode in a little while. But like, not a huge fan of the goatee. I get that there wants to be some kind of visual transformation, but
the lack of a uniform helps that
Yeah.
already. Well, I just want to ask this, because in the Deconstruction of Falling Stars, he had the goatee, and we got to see villainous Sheridan, the
Yeah.
evil President Sheridan. And I know that when that was happening, the goatee helped kind of solidify that, because in a story sense, in a production sense, goatees are usually sell evil very well.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that is supposed to equate to season 5 of Sheridan has a goatee, and so it gives a little bit more of that dirt and grit that we've been wanting from the character, because Sheridan in season 5 is far more of a blowhard. He's pig-headed. He is arrogant at points in season 5. Season 5 is more unabashedly painting Sheridan as a bad person, but still a good person, but one who does fuck up, and some of his fuck-ups come from these weird internalized things that he has going on that aren't nice. But do you think that weighs in at all, or do you think this is just a classic case of, well, you had it last season, let's carry it over, and that's like how you are visually different now?
No, I think it's probably a mix.
What
honestly.
about the third choice, which is JMS has a goatee?
Yeah, that's also a factor.
And John Sheridan is his self-insert character.
Yeah.
So now he is the president of the galaxy, and JMS is the president of the galaxy of this show. I can now have my guy be me by having a goatee, like I do.
Yeah.
Garibaldi gets a goatee later in the show as well. There's lots of
dignified, powerful men who do a good service to others, get goatees in this show.
I think most of the male cast get goatees in Babylon 5 at some point, because Franklin has one in Crusade. And Zach doesn't. Zach's a good boy. He's clean-shaven. Marcus had, his beard.
Marcus had the beard.
He had his beard, yes. Oh, Marcus, we miss you so much.
I don't like extortion.
And I don't like insults.
Funny, with a face like yours, I thought you'd be used to it by now.
Season 5 is antagonistic, not by design, but just by happenstance, because you have stuff like Sheridan with the goatee, which is a minimal complaint, but it is one. And then you have Lockley. And it almost feels like the show is wanting you to hate it, because we love Ivanova. Everyone loves Ivanova. Ivanova was one of the greatest characters in the show. We left her on a very somber note, one that you would want closure on. And then season 5 comes around, and there's this new woman who is, by all intents and purposes, when you start the series, just Ivanova. She's this white lady.
Her Ivanova's replacement in the episode.
But she is this white lady with brown hair tied back in the Earth Force uniform, and she's no nonsense. Yeah.
Qualified.
Yes, and if you aren't
not diplomatic,
if you aren't open to giving this character a chance and letting their own things bleed out, you are just going to be affronted by Lockley, as I was. I hated Lockley so
people never
much.
Get past it.
It was hard to get past.
Fine.
There is a turning point in the series, and we'll get there when we get there in our discussions in the future, but there is a certain storyline she goes on that really flipped me around on the character. But when the opening credits kicked in, and Ivanova's not there, and Lockley's there, because I didn't know anything. Admittedly, I should have, because Ivanova isn't on the DVD cover, but Lockley is. But I didn't think about it too much. And then when Ivanova isn't there, it's very hard to like the 5th season, because you have just certain things there that are just roadblocks for the enjoyment. While season 3
starts in a deficit.
Your reactions to Lockley overall, what have they been?
Where's Ivanova? I want Ivanova back. Why are they making her a discount of Ivanova? Okay, they're finally making her something on her own. I still want Ivanova back.
So you're a fan then?
It's not the fault of the character.
No.
It's the context that the character comes into that's the problem for me. Like, in terms of it makes it almost impossible for me to connect and care about her.
It's like Ezri Dax in Deep Space Nine, where it's the final season. You can't expect me to suddenly give a fuck about a new person that's come in. You can't expect me to care about a new main character in the final season of your epic sci-fi saga. It's impossible for me to care. And that's how I felt when this was first introduced. I'm like, I will never put investment in this person because we're in the final hour here. I know who I care about already and I want to see their stories. I don't want to know this new person. I don't want to know this new stranger in my face. And things have changed over the years and things have changed as the season progresses. But these were the initial reactions, and I don't think they're uncommon ones. I think most people who viewed Babylon 5 who were long-term fans were not warm to Lockley when she comes in because it's hard to be. I mean, she does awesome things in this episode, and they are worth talking about. But yeah, the lack of Ivanova really stings. And Claudia Christian isn't in season 5, and there's been a multitude of reasons given as to why. JMS has his story, she has her story. There are other people who have different opinions on it. I don't exactly know what it is anymore. It's hard to keep track.
The result is the same. Like, we know that it was in the production side of things, she didn't sign on.
There was not enough money. Season 5 is drastically reduced in budget, and the one thing I've always known for my whole life is she didn't come back because she wanted more money. And so she isn't here because she didn't want to lower her price. And that was always treated with a bit of derision in the tone. And if that is the case, good for her.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the production couldn't give more money because Babylon 5 was always lacking in funds.
Yeah.
This was the transition from the previous network to TNT. There were concessions made. And the actress of Ivanova, if this is true, didn't want to make those or couldn't make those, and whatever, or the agents didn't want to make those. But it leads to us in the final season meeting a new person and being told you should care about them.
It tries. It really does try, and sometimes it tries a bit too hard, and you're like, no, I'm not over Ivanova. Stop pushing me to date. Unfortunately, Lockley isn't the only new character thrust upon us in this episode. Lockley meets Byron.
We have another new face in season 5. We lost one long-haired British man, and now we meet a new long-haired British man. But this one's name isn't Marcus, and it isn't his brother. No, it's a new little freak. His name's Byron. Byron, he's the other roadblock. He is the type where I've rarely met a fan of Babylon 5 who likes Byron. I don't think I've ever met a fan of Babylon 5 who likes Byron. Like, actually talk to someone who enjoys Byron.
Byron actor's great, though.
Robin Atkin Downes is
He's a fucking champ.
Robin Atkin Downes is a great actor overall, and there's so much to say about Robin Atkin Downes in Babylon 5. But just to focus on the character of Byron, I detest this guy. I hate this guy. When I first watched it, I also felt the same thing of, they were going to replace Marcus now because he is a long-haired British man who says really kooky things in a way that he thinks he sounds so clever. the characters are different and they serve different functions. And Byron is not a main character of the season. He's in episodes, but he's only in a handful of episodes. He's not in the opening credits. But, oh my, when I saw this, he made me so angry because it was really that sense of, oh, we're going to replace both Marcus and Ivanova with two new people. No, thank you. But outside of that, the dialogue that Byron is given, I find to this day offensive. I find it reprehensible. This is JMS getting into his writer's toolbox, and instead of using delicate instruments, he's using instruments that are big and torturous and hurts me.
Geometry line.
It's like every character speaks like that one bit that the Techno Mage said.
Yeah.
But it was fun because the Techno Mage was his own thing, and then he
isolated.
left. Byron, for you, come on, tell all of the yumlings that you out there listening your reactions to the Byron.
On first viewing, I was intrigued. That is honestly how it went. I was feeling the loss of Marcus. You had shown disdain for Byron, so I wanted to be a contrarian and like him. That quickly disappeared.
He's the type of character that, as someone who watches this with new people, if I watch it in the same room as new people, he's the one aspect of Babylon 5 I have very hard it's very hard for me to control my guttural reaction to. I like to keep a poker face with people who are new watching the show because I like to let them experience it. If they ask me questions, I'll say, oh, I don't know. Or I'll give them a little bit of an answer, but not much. But with Byron, he turns up and I just go, oh, shut up. Like, I just roll my eyes, I groan, I swear. It's, the somber David. They're closer than sisters. Sarah, the special Simon. And not only is it because of the dialogue, but I find Byron inherently arrogant. He's arrogant, and I don't know why he's arrogant. Like, I do and I don't. It's just one of those things where he comes in with a certain college student who's just done a unit of philosophy level arrogance and privilege, and yet what the show tells me he is supposed to be, I want to find sympathetic. But the way he's written and the way he's visually presented is not only obnoxious and pretentious, but ominous as well. And so I always have a dissonance with Byron. And when there's a dissonance like this, I just tend to side with one or the other. And this is a case where I just go, no, I don't like him. He's a stupid hippie. Like, my instant reaction is like, he's a hippy-dippy, pretentious art student, and I just want to punch him in the face. Like, the character, that is.
I'm sorry, but I'm
working. Yes, I can see. Books, manuals, directives, regulations. The geometries that circumscribe your waking life draw narrower and narrower until nothing fits inside them anymore. My name is Byron.
This, like most of the season premieres, has a very bare bones little tale in it that is
political in nature.
And it's political in nature, yeah. But each season just has, a lot of the time, just a little throwaway story or a little adventure or a little obstacle to overcome that's there to help show us, the viewer, what these characters are capable of, how they react. When Sheridan first showed up, it was a Mbryo war cruiser has rocked up and wants to start war, and then we dealt with it, and then we moved on. But it was really there to show us how Sheridan interacts with the characters we know and what type of leader he is. Same with Season 3, where, hey, we've got a new ship, let's go take out a shadow vessel, and let's get going. And Season 4 was a bit more complex. We had several storylines that was telling us, here's all of these stories we're going to explore in the season. Here in Season 5, it is a guy wants to kill Sheridan because he's the guy who stopped Clark's regime, so he must die, like Lincoln. And it's fine. You don't care about it, though? like, be honest with me. When you watch this, when it actually focuses and leans on the assassination part of the
Don't
episode,
give a shit.
you don't care. You don't give a flying fuck. And why is that?
One reason is that you know that Sheridan's safe. So you're not afraid for him in that way. And also because it's not just that Sheridan is safe, because we know that he lives to this certain point. It's we trust everybody around Sheridan to do their jobs effectively. So yes, he's in danger, but he's not in peril.
Interesting.
And the show wants us to think that he is in peril, as well as being in danger, and that all of these people are right to be concerned, which they are. But also, like, it's going to be fine. As well, like, the tension
there is no
never
tension.
builds, because if you are a returning viewer, you have a sense and a confidence in this team. If there was like a kink in the chain somewhere, like if Zach was out or Garibaldi wasn't there, or if, you know, we saw that somebody else is like on the assassin's side and that it isn't actually a lone gunman,
yeah.
a lone gunman, but a conspiracy like it was with Santiago, then there might be more oomph to it.
It's skin deep.
But it's like it's telling me that it's a bomb and it's fireworks.
It's a very shallow story, and in just writing overall in film and television, this is not deep or nuanced or complex. It doesn't have any interesting twists or turns, and that can be fine. But it's not making much of a commentary either. And it's not really giving me much to chew on, thematically speaking, or even for the characters. You get mainly that Sheridan is naive about politics and about his position and how things are going to be different, that the status has to change from what it once was, and that his ideals will have to go differently than how he wants them to. But that is only thrown up in the air minorly. Why I find this inherently non-engaging is we've seen Babylon 5 do this story 1,000,000 times over and 1,000,000 times better. There's been so many stories of when a corrupt Earth person is on the station and they want to kidnap or hurt one of our characters. We've seen it a bunch, and here it is again. And they have run out of tricks to use for it, so they just lean on the most boring ones or the most cliched, cartoonish. But the episode isn't even interested in it because it is there to serve as the nexus point for what is the importance, which is Lockley and Byron and Sheridan and Jakar, and how all of those characters are here, and they're having to and Garibaldi, and they're having to face off against one another, or what are we going to do with these people during the series to come? And so the assassination plot is a means to an end, and that is okay, but it's not good either. It can be okay, it can serve a function, but that's what it is. It's a function rather than a narrative or a story. You will never remember this plot when you finish the show. You won't remember specifically this one. You may blur it with 5 others that we've seen before. Lockley is now in charge of Babylon 5, And this is all here. The assassination plot is all here to help us see her in action, how she reacts to a crisis, and how the other people that we know and love react to her as well. And it works in that way. Lockley, we talked about how we feel overall in the initial way, but as a rewatch, as people who have viewed the show many times over, my opinion is very different, and I imagine yours is as well. Lockley was the saving grace of this episode, honestly, for me. I loved Lockley here. I thought she was great. I enjoy Tracy Scoggins' performance. She's very dedicated. You can tell that this is material that means a lot to her. She isn't just coming into the series at the end and just farting her way through it. She is acting her ass off during this. She is a trooper. She is somebody who is a fan of this show. She is somebody that makes me feel at ease when she's on the screen, because I know she isn't going to fumble this. I know that she isn't just going to try and be Claudia Christian, or she's going to try and make this her show suddenly. She is so good in this episode. Scoggins and Lockley just do so much work. There's so many subtleties. There's so many just little touches of telling me who this character is and why she's here and how she's going to shake up stuff. I just was really enamored by how she made a plot that is bare bones at best feel far more weighty than it actually was. And with the telepath stuff as well, in former episodes of this series, when a weird, obviously shady, kooky thing would go on, the characters, Sheridan, would walk into it like a dum-dum and get fucked over. Here, she's intelligent and goes, oh, I'm not going alone in a corridor with a bunch of creepy
I'm
people.
getting flashbacks to Grey 17 is missing.
Or when Sheridan got abducted by aliens because he went out on a drive in his spaceship and he was just an idiot and he said, what could go wrong? Lockley, I like a lot as a character. I'm actually excited for season 5 to see more Lockley and to see more material of her, and we can just analyze and go over and appreciate the performance. I'm very much a Lockley supporter at this point, and I'm glad to say that because, like earlier, the negative response is one of a guttural reaction, is a very emotional reaction, but is it fair on the character? Is it fair on the actress? I don't necessarily think so.
I enjoy the opening with her being guided around by Corwin, and how initially she's like confused and kind of disappointed that he's the one that's greeting her. But I also appreciate it because he's somebody that's not in the command staff, but we've known for a really long time.
It's been here since season 1.
They are in a specific role and they've stayed in that place. So the fact that he's guiding her through and sort of giving his perspective on the way that the station is run, I really appreciate it because it does give him time, but it also allows to showcase her responses.
Her naivete and arrogance as well, because she blows off all of his excuses. She says, well, it's a improperly run station and
like
we shouldn't have any crisis on here.
An incomplete report, and if you run things right, then you don't find trouble. And that works on a ship that's military, where you're not dealing with people, you're dealing with soldiers.
Yeah.
That kind of methodical way of working would be effective in that context. But when you're dealing with people and personalities and
politics,
a variety of cultures as well as politics,
you're running a city, not a military vessel.
that's not a luxury that you have, because in all of her previous commands, right, everybody working under her would be working for the same goal and acknowledge the same chain of command. So she could do things in those ways. And that's the way that she's been trained to do. That's what she's seen work. That's what she's seen rewarded. So it makes sense that she would go into her new job thinking and feeling the same way of, if I know all of the manuals, if I know all of the specs, yeah, I'm going to ask the one question about personalities because that's something that might not be written down. But if I know everything, then I can deal with everything.
One of the things that really leapt out at me with some of the stuff that you were going over there is they are telling us her arc in the series. They're telling us at the beginning she is very staunch in these opinions. She's very much dismissive of how things operate. And we see how it is very similar to Sheridan, but he had a far more upbeat attitude about it. Sheridan is also a person that was a military man, and he was going to run this station like he would his ship. But he was far less staunch about that. He just subtly did it over time, and there were moments when he stepped up at that and had anger at the fact that he was now in charge of a city in space rather than a vessel. But he did have that, I'm from this world and now I'm in this one. But Lockley, she is refusing to change at this moment in time. But
she doesn't see it as a different thing. She still sees it as, I am in command.
But that's how she's going to have a journey. That's how she's going to have a journey over the course of the show.
Really clearly sets it up, especially with one of Corwin's lines. I can't remember exactly what it is. But when
he's just trying to help her,
he does have a line like that, and then runs up after her on the stairs, which is cute because it's just like she knows the layout, so she knows where she's going. She doesn't need a guide,
and she isn't stopping.
I'm pretty much up to speed on all the reports.
With all due respect, there's a lot that doesn't fit into a report.
Then the report is incomplete.
The big thing about Lockley is she has a past that we don't know about, but we will get to know about. Who did she fight for in the recent Civil War?
Earth.
She fought for Earth. Didn't we all, Garibaldi? And then he just gives a, nah,
yeah. Yeah, if you were on our side, you would have just said that, so...
She has that
you called me out on my bullshit. I don't like you.
But that plot in this singular episode gives us so much because it tells you how everyone reacts to her. Because Sheridan didn't even ask, and she felt the pressure of that not being addressed, and he didn't. Sheridan doesn't care. He knows her. He trusts her.
Probably already knows, so he doesn't need to ask.
I don't know if Sheridan already knows. I think he is a guy that he goes off of who they are. He goes, I know Lockley because they have a past, and
we'll get into that later when it comes up.
They have a past.
But I think I get the sense that he knows and he doesn't care. Because it's not like it wouldn't be there for him to find.
And Garibaldi probably knows and does care, but he needs to hear her say it. He needs to hear what she says to justify herself.
Yes.
And that's what I mean. She is a character that in the universe of the show is divisive. People will like her, people will hate her. Her command decision of letting Sheridan go to the inauguration and she agrees with it pisses off Delenn immediately and makes some of the command staff really scratch their heads, and Garibaldi on the warpath now because of that.
do really like her reasoning of you are thinking personally, not politically. And he's thinking politically.
And that is really valid to bring in that you are looking at your friend here. You're worried about your friend. You're not worried about the president. And you're not worried about the political ramifications.
You're worried about John.
You're worried about John, of
not
course.
Mr. President. And
Can't they both be the same thing?
That's a perfectly valid thing to be. Like, especially Delenn, like, that's her husband now.
They almost live together.
Well, they do. They live together,
But they don't.
No.
They do and they don't. They have a whole conversation about how they do and they don't.
No,
and
they just don't live in one place together.
Yeah, but they are lamenting that they don't live together in the way that you would say. They live together.
They haven't made a home together and they won't until they go to Mbryo.
Let's be real, though. As a couple who have been in a relationship for over a decade, you didn't feel like we lived together until we actually moved into a place together, did you?
No, I felt like we practically lived together.
Yeah, but we didn't live, like, you didn't feel like we were living together, though, even though we actually had apartments down the road from one another.
No, like, at a certain point I did. But, like, when we stopped spending basically any night apart, I was just like, yeah, this is functionally us living together.
Yeah, functionally.
Like, it's still quantified a bit more.
Yeah.
Especially because they're dividing between the two places. Like, if it was just we sleep at John's place, I use my old home as a office.
But they do sleep in each other's places.
Yeah.
Lockley had that amazing scene with Garibaldi where she ripped him a new asshole, and it was my favorite scene in the episode.
Fucking great. I love it when people tear Garibaldi down because he deserves it.
Garibaldi had an entire season arc where he was a prick. And then at the end of season 4, they tidied it up real quickly.
Everybody's forgiven him?
Everybody forgave him really quickly, but Lockley is here to say, I don't know you. In fact, what I
don't owe you shit.
And in fact, what I do know about you, I don't respect. If you really care, enlist. I adored, I laughed out loud Tracy Scoggins' delivery of this, as well as Joey Dora's reaction.
More and more pissed as Garibaldi keeps on cutting her off from walking forward.
I know, but
you are in my way in more ways than one. Get fucked.
What I was going to highlight was when she remarked about how he left. He's Mr. I've been here the longest. I know this place better than anyone else. Yeah, and then you left. That was salt in the wound to Garibaldi. She knows how to push his buttons because they're the same. They're the same. They're very, very similar, those two characters. And that's going to be poignant as the season goes along. And that's something, too, is Lockley is really beneficial to Garibaldi in season 5. She is somebody who argues against him. Garibaldi is not the most beloved character in the world for viewers. I know many people who do not like him and many people who do like him. He's a love it or hate it type character.
And people's opinion on him does change over time.
But people in the show tend to like Garibaldi a lot. And when he then became a bad guy, then they didn't, but that's because the narrative dictated it. But Garibaldi as a person, he's the type of person that people would either like him or hate him. And I like, very much so, that Lockley's here to say, I don't fucking like you. I don't respect you. You mean nothing to me. When he said at the end that he was now in charge of the covert intelligence, like their CIA equivalent, the touch
military intelligence, a bit of a contradiction, if you ask me.
And then we'll figure out a name for it.
But it isn't even like a name for the organization; it's a title for him.
But when she heard that, she grabbed her box of stuff that she was unpacking and brought it closer to herself.
No, because he was messing with it.
But also
he's just like, I get to touch your stuff.
But
and
he
she's
was
like,
but he was saying
Mine.
it. But he was saying it at the same time as now I'm in charge of this thing where I get to gather information on people. And she just grabbed her box of stuff and moved it towards herself. And it wasn't pronounced. It was just casually there.
Oh,
Their
I really
dynamic
noticed
is
it.
so electrifying, these two.
He's just like, okay. I'm here. I'm here to stay.
What is your opinion on characters who are introduced midway through or late into a series that are there as people who don't like our main characters, yet they are a main character? How do you feel about that?
I like it a lot of the time because it's like, why bother introducing a new character if they're going to get along with everybody? And it's all kumbaya bullshit. I enjoy characters that challenge each other and that they have an antagonistic relationship because you don't like everybody that you work with.
And you don't like everyone in a show that you watch. Or there are things about them that you wish that the series itself would address.
Yeah.
And Lockley here is addressing the shortcomings of many characters. She does it with Sheridan at points. She points out Garibaldi. She gets on with Franklin, but not enough to want to know him. Whenever Franklin tries to be a little bit more informal, she just brushes it off because she's got work to do. The fact that her best friend at the end of this episode is Corwin is hilarious. It's because Corwin does his fucking job. Like, she needs a person that can give his opinion and do the job at the same time, and Corwin literally does that.
Friend. Not trying to be her friend.
Corwin tries to be friendly, but he isn't trying to be her friend. But Lockley is superb in this episode. Her just grilling Garibaldi is a top 10 scene of the season for me. It's great. But she talks to Sheridan. She lays it out. Hey, why me? Why an Earth Force officer? And it's all about appearances and a message and the implications of it. Sheridan, although he doesn't like to admit it, he is a politician now. Like, he is one. He wants to think of himself still as the same person, and he wants to be able to walk around with the people and not have guards and stuff, but inherently, he is now having to think about the larger picture. And this is a moment that tells us that he chose Lockley and he chose an Earth Force officer because of the bigger picture here. And I really like that subtlety there because it's a contradiction of Sheridan where he is already playing the bigger game, but he also doesn't want to be because he just wants to be a guy. But he can't be a guy anymore. He's now the president of this interstellar alliance and he's having to make these decisions. And so now here he is with the new person in charge of Babylon 5, his stomping ground, and he has to look them in the eye and say, I'm not going to override your decisions. I'm only going to weigh in on political matters.
Yes.
And then by the end of the episode, he
makes
overrides one of her decisions and says it's a political matter
it.
now. So I decided that.
I want to get to that, but before I do, I want to acknowledge the handing over scene. He has already been discharged from Earth Force for at least several days, if not weeks. And yet, he's been able to check her orders and confirm them and is the one to hand it over to her?
Because Babylon 5 is in charge, like ISA runs Babylon 5, but Earth is like paying for it and renting it from them.
Yeah.
So I guess he's the guy that's like, I'm the landlord of Babylon 5 and now I'm letting you sign over the lease.
It's just like, oh, well, we gave Ivanova Babylon 5 and now she's not here. She's transferred out. So we need somebody officially there to take it over.
Yes. And
from her. But it's just like Sheridan has no rights in that realm anymore.
I think he does when they lay it out, but it's still there to say, hey, I'm no longer in charge of Babylon 5.
It's
Wink.
yours now.
Wink, it's
It's
yours
now.
I'm not going to tie up your hands.
It's functional, but when I think about it, I'm like,
you get to make decisions and I won't weigh in. I won't step over them, okay? Except for I will.
Okay.
And there's also the thing about Lockley. She says, I'm going to make it my choice my way. I'm not going to side with you just because you need that. But her first big decision in Babylon 5, her first big command level choice was to side with Sheridan.
yeah.
That was her big...
Yeah.
Immediately she was like, yes, sir. I think that's interesting. Inherently fascinating
I do,
about the characters.
because they think in a very similar way, because they are soldiers first, not politicians first. Everybody else in that room, well, with the exception of Garibaldi and Franklin, I guess, like we have 3 ambassadors there.
But even Franklin and Garibaldi aren't soldiers.
No, they're not. They don't think in that way.
Not at all. So it was great to have these 2 soldiers in the room feel like the only ones in the room,
But-
like alone in their determination of how things should be handled.
Something that I really appreciated on this particular viewing was the sort of contrast and flipping, because Sheridan, when it comes to himself, is able to choose the political over the personal. He chooses the state and the reputation of the office and the alliance over his personal safety, right? But as soon as he's given, like, you make this choice, he's just like, okay, I'm going to screw over this person that I said that I wasn't going to screw over by undermining her decision and overturning it because of a personal alliance.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh boy. This
It's
is
like he learned the wrong lesson from his own assassination attempt.
Sheridan is he was never interested in politics. They mentioned that in Intersections in Real Time. And yet he is thrust into it. Throughout the series, him having to do the bureaucracy and the paperwork and diplomacy, he would always shrug at or throw it onto somebody else. And I know we've had many disagreements about Sheridan, if he's a good boss or not, and how he would defer to Ivanova. But now, here he is as the president, the go-to guy, and he still laments it. He still is flummoxed by the role he has, and yet it's one that he created. And I think that is very funny, because not only is it funny just in general humor-wise, but dramatically speaking, it's got so much humor there as well of just, oh boy, he's going to fuck this up real good. And he does fuck things up real good in the season. Throughout the episode, we're being introduced to the telepath colony and Byron. Byron meets up with Lockley at the cafeteria and he distorts the perception of reality and time with his mind powers, and he says some very cryptic bullshit to Lockley, and she's left there quizzical at best. And he says, come meet me in this hallway at this time. You'll have to trust me. And as we've flagged up, she doesn't just do it alone like he asked. She brings armed guards. But once we go over what he wants, Byron and his merry band of weirdos, it's a good idea for a narrative for the season that Sheridan's first political crisis that he has to deal with is about the telepaths, the big thing that we've had in the background since the very beginning of the show. Something that hasn't been confronted directly, now we will in the final season. And Sheridan, we know, is going to fuck it up because they told us this in Deconstruction of Falling Stars. Like, this will spin out of control. This will be one of his worst choices.
Yeah, we were told that he makes that decision and that it was probably wrong for him to do it.
He said it was the worst choice he made in his career. And Byron, if we go away from how it's written and how he's presented, Byron and the telepath colony is a brilliant idea.
It's a very logical plot to introduce because we know that there's these tensions. We know that this is an escalation that's waiting to happen. The last time that we saw Bester, it was basically him promising war.
And Sheridan overrides Lockley's decision. She says no. I don't trust you guys. You guys are weird. You guys are breaking the law. You're outlaws. You're wanted by Earth government and Psi Corps. No, I'm not giving you refuge here because they want to have asylum. They want to be free. And so they've come to Babylon 5, the last best hope for peace. And now that Sheridan has won against the tyranny of Earth, hopefully they can show him that there's still further tyranny that needs to be defeated, and perhaps that can be done if we are here on the station you are on. And that they're brilliant, truly brilliant, and that there's so much you could do with that. And Sheridan, Sheridan accepts them. Now, if we just want to just go over that, that's great. But what makes it even better is he accepts them in what I would say is the wrong way. Because he specifically says, not only because they saved his life and it's a personal thing, but it's because they will be resources. They're resources to be used later. If we do this move now, it will benefit us specifically later, rather than thinking about the telepaths as people who just want rights.
It aligns with the way that he's treated Leader.
It aligns with him being a soldier.
Yeah.
See, the difference between Lockley and Sheridan is Sheridan never really lets that go. He never really lets go of that soldier way of thinking of, you will do what I want because I made it so that you had to. And when people back away from him from that, he gets indignant as fuck about it all the time.
He hates it when people don't follow his commands.
Yeah, and yet he does it to people who aren't in his command structure at all. These telepaths don't owe him fucking shit when it comes to that. He owes them. He's now the president of the galaxy, basically. He's supposed to be making it better, and yet he inherently does this for the given that they will help him win a war that is inevitable. Yeah. And yet, him thinking that way is just making the war inevitable in the first place, you dumbass.
Because it's that thinking and belief system that's led to these telepaths being in this situation. If he treated them the way that he treated Jakar when he sought asylum.
Yeah.
So many of the conflicts that come up in this season, as well as the projected future that we see at various points, that wouldn't unfold nearly the same way. And it would likely be way less of a disaster, if a disaster at all.
And he doesn't listen.
No.
Byron says very succinctly in this episode to Lockley, but Sheridan knows this too, they're not the telepath resistance. They reject violence. They reject technology. They don't want to be used like that. And yet Sheridan is accepting them so that he can use them the way they don't want to be used, because guess what? People don't have autonomy. In a lot of Sheridan's thinking, Sheridan very much is, if I do this, then this person will do that because I need it that way. If I just take out Clark, Earth will be fine again. And then he was proven wrong. At the end of last season, Earth is still corrupt and fucked up and figuring itself out. It didn't suddenly go away just because you took over the office and you got the president to kill himself. No, there were still problems, and there's still problems. And that's what I love about season 5 when it comes to Sheridan is he's too thick. He's too pig-headed. He's too dumb to really see that. And we will go on with the telepath plot just spiraling out of control because Sheridan is just, he keeps thinking of people in a certain way and not being more inclusive. He needs these people to be the weapons that the Vorlons created them to be in the first place.
Yeah.
They're not individuals, not people who have rights, really. They're people who owe Sheridan later.
I hope you made the right decision.
We both know a telepath war is coming one of these days. It won't hurt to have some of our own on hand when things get ugly. Besides, one of his people saved my life. I owe them.
I suppose so.
It falls apart for me. I want to give Byron a chance, right? I've said this.
You try that every time.
But as soon as he fucking speaks, I don't know what to make of it. We'll have more to say as we go into more heavy Byron episodes, but the way that JMS frames this character, the way he creates material for him, the way that the actor portrays it, the costuming, the way the camera is shooting the character, he's inherently unlikable. He's inherently repellent.
He glows with arrogance.
Should the character be? With what we've just said about him, should the character be portrayed this way? At this moment in time, I don't know. I don't know. And I know where the story goes, as do you. And I still don't know if this is the right tact to do this. Because, realistically speaking, he's a civil rights activist. That's what he is. And they treat him like he's a cult leader. He just wants telepaths not to be slaves. He's not fucking Charles Manson. Yet...
It aligns to me more with the sort of narratives that people made and make around the Black Panthers.
Yes, but he also doesn't have that either.
No, he doesn't.
I don't know. We'll have more to dig into with Byron. I'm actually excited to dig into that, but I did legitimately want to give him a chance. I want to see the merits of the character.
He ruins it from the first line.
As soon as the camera showed him ominously standing in a corridor, I just couldn't. I can't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all the Byron heads out there. I know that you're really wanting a fellow Byron defender, but I'm not in that army. I'm sorry. It is time to shine the spotlight talking about one thing at a time. It is that time where we go over an actor or actress that appeared in the given episode. We talk about their performance, we talk about things that they've been in, if we've seen them in anything, and or any facts about the person. And we have to talk about Special Simon, of course. We haven't talked about him too much, but boy oh boy, I don't want to pick on a child, because I know he's a child in this, he's a teenager, but he gives probably the strangest performance in Babylon 5 we've seen in a very long time. He gave me Jinxo vibes, but Jinxo he had dialogue at least, but I don't hate the Special Simon performance. I adore it, but not in the way that you're supposed to. I get guilty pleasure out of enjoying it. It's so weird and ludicrous. It's just... every single thing this performer does is strange. What is the actor's name? I'm going too far into talking about Special Simon, the character, but who is the actor that imbued the specialness into Simon?
He is credited as Tim Eister.
Okay. He's credited that way, but he's got a secret name.
Well, no, he legally changed his name, but we'll get into that later.
Oh, okay. So I've already given my thoughts on Special Simon and how he was played. I love it in the most guilty way. You don't get acting like this anymore.
No, it is something special.
Yeah.
It's not good, but it's special.
Why don't you like it?
It just makes me go it makes me do a weird facial expression and pull my shoulders up to my ear. I like my ears. I just don't like it.
I just want to defend myself or clarify earlier.
Oh,
when I say that it's sexual, I'm not saying like I find the kid hot. I'm not trying to sexualize the kid, but like what I'm saying is he plays it as if, look how hot I am. Aren't I cute? Aren't I beautiful? With the hair and the way, literally when they have the camera shoot him, he makes sure to adjust himself to look pretty. Like he's doing a photo shoot rather than acting. And I think that's weird. I think it's very weird to be told he is a starving child who's lived their entire life in tunnels and vents, and yet he looks like a fucking supermodel. It's very disarming.
Yeah, it's weird.
And I don't think I'm off base for saying like it's weirdly horny and sexual. I don't want it to be. He's a child, but it is. It's just weird. It makes me uneasy because here's the thing too to mention about Byron is you get cult vibes from Byron and his gang.
Immediately.
And I think the fact he's called Special Simon, but the fact that Special Simon the kid does have this thing going on makes it feel even more cult vibey. It just just icky. Thump. But I had to, Rachel. And it's weird to be discussing this on Babylon 5, but in true JMS fashion, he does kill the child.
Yeah.
He kills the child.
Yep.
Special Simon dies like a dog. He speaks because his whole thing is Special Simon doesn't speak. Mm-hmm. He chooses not to. Yes. But then he says, no! And there's I sorry to slam this guy. I'm sure you're a great actor. But when he spoke that line, I wrote in my notes, there's a reason why they didn't let him speak before. He wasn't, his one-line delivery wasn't good.
There's a reason that some of the best child performances are the ones where they give them close to or
no dialogue,
no lines.
We had a great child performance in Believers.
Yeah.
He was great. Sean, that guy who played Sean, he was a fantastic child actor, really brought it. This guy, he's bringing something I don't want. So I'm not familiar with anything this actor has done. I looked over his catalog, and it's a lot of series that I am either too young for
married with children,
or in an era where it was I don't really watch it. He's in episodes of things where I go, oh yes, you're in that, and I know of this show, but I don't watch it. Like he's in Bones, he's in a few other things, and I just go, no.
I looked for him in Bones.
Did you look hard?
I did.
Did you find him?
He's uncredited in Bones as well. I want to add that.
So was he in it or was he cut?
So like his voice was in it. And then his face is in it.
But not at the same time.
But he doesn't have a scene.
Was he a photo and then you heard his voice on the phone?
No. So he's the victim.
Oh,
so
nice.
He calls up Booth.
Special Simon's always a victim, huh? Didn't make it again in Bones. Ooh, yeah, I said it.
He talks to Booth.
Who's one of the main characters?
Yep.
Is that Angel?
Yep.
Okay.
Who also directed this episode, I think.
Oh, well, thank you, Angel.
So, he's on the phone. He's like arranged a meeting, and Bones is all like, "How the fuck did somebody get your number?" And he's like, it's fine.
It's totally fine.
It's fine.
He's Special Simon.
And then he checks on the number, they trace it, I think, or they figure out where it was, and then they find his massacred body, and he's been exploded, and one of the techs, like the crew from the lab, says, it's not a good way to lose weight.
Oof. Good joke. Was that one of the techs? Was that the guy from... what's that show, Freaks and Geeks? Was it that guy? The one with the frowny face from Freaks and Geeks? Isn't he in Bones? Isn't he one of the main Bones men? I don't know. I don't know
He's
Bones
the
well
one
enough.
with the short, really curly hair.
Maybe. But I did not watch Salute Your Shorts, but I did
Neither did
look
I.
it up. It's about soccer. And our friend from the last Best Babylon 5 podcast, Steve, said that he had watched it and said it was a really good show. He hasn't seen it since. And I asked if he remembered Special Simon as the main kid, and he just said to me, no, it was a show where a bunch of the main characters were boring and I didn't like them, but I liked a lot of these other characters. So you like them. And I know exactly what he means by that because there's been so many shows I grew up
your
with.
experience with most shows, Ryan.
That's Wild Thornberrys. I don't know. I like literally any other character other than our main girl in Wild Thornberrys. I'm like, please, can we focus on the parents?
Do you even remember her name?
Eliza.
Mhm.
I got it. Yes, you can't trick me. I remember.
No, I was just doubtful.
You remember Hey Arnold?
Yeah.
I hated Arnold. I liked everyone else. I thought Arnold was boring.
He can remember everything he's ever seen, heard, smelt, or touched from the moment he was born. And he can project those memories into someone else's mind. Share a part of himself in the most intimate way imaginable. I saw the flowers he gave you. I'd say he's quite fond of you.
He doesn't have a huge roster, even though he started acting at like 7. I think it was Santa Barbara or another, like, it was like a very generic looking TV show.
Here's one IMDb trivia fact on his IMDb page, and it's very upsetting.
Yes.
I didn't know what to make of it. All it is, and this is the type of thing where it's like, only 2 people would know this. Him and the other person. And this is his account, so he wrote this, which is, that's my theory. It's just a game theory. But it's a trivia fact about how he was romantically entangled with one of his co-stars from Salute Your Shorts, that he had an infatuation with them and wanted to be in a relationship with them, but was rebuffed because that other person was already in a relationship. That's the fact. And it's very upsetting to read. I've never read a fact like that on IMDb about any actor. I've never gone to an actor's IMDb page and the only trivia that they have is this deeply personal thing that you would not know otherwise, except for them explicitly telling you that.
Yeah.
Like, why is that there?
Somebody talk, like, that's a thing that might get around in gossip.
Yeah, but
things, because like you were not in the realm of like how much those kids were stalked and harassed and interviewed. So it wouldn't be surprising.
And there's no context for it. Like,
no.
I don't know too much about like how old he was when this happened. I don't know too much even about that co-star. It was one of his male co-stars, right? I think I can't recollect off the top of my head, but he's in this show. Mm-hmm. That, like, the show he's known for, and this is the one fact is about that show, and it doesn't even say that this co-star was in that show. I had to look up that actor, because it refers to this actor, like, you should know who this is, and I don't. It's like, this person is like, I don't know who that is.
Well, he has stated in an interview that I read that his character from Salute Your Shorts is gay.
Right.
He's come out as saying that.
Right, yeah.
He's also come out himself, but as bisexual.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it was one of his male co-stars that he had an infatuation with, and very weird piece of trivia, but clearly you know a bit more about this actor. Yeah. I mainly looked at his performance and was in awe of it. I just was gobsmacked by the performance.
I was in awe of what I read about his life, too.
Let's go, baby! How special is Simon?
So he wrote a sort of guest blog on a website that for the Good Men Project.
Okay.
Which is titled The Good Life, What My Dog Taught Me About Friendship. And this is the description that he gives, assumably to himself. Like, I'm assuming that he wrote this. that's at the end of this post, which is Trevor Eister is an actor best known for his archetype-defining role of Sponge on the iconic 90s Nickelodeon sitcom Salute Your Shorts. He's a vocalist looking for a band in Los Angeles, an urban beekeeper, and the founder of the micro-volunteering non-profit called And Then Angels Descended, that seek to end the nation's quote-unquote empathy deficit through organized acts of empathy on Facebook. To learn more about what that means, check out his Kickstarter project, Stand in My Shoes.
Oh, buddy, let me tell you about empathy and the lack of it in this world. I'm sorry, but I don't know how much changed the world, but I like that you tried. So what is it? Did you look into it?
Yeah, so it's basically like just people asking for help and then getting help from a stranger kind of thing.
Nice.
Of like become an angel. So somebody who volunteers or request help for something. Like the website's still up, but it does not seem to be functional or active. I didn't look for it on Facebook.
Please help me. I need an angel. Okay, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Good for him.
So in the article, he basically goes through a variety of reasons why dogs are better than humans.
I agree. They can lick their own balls.
I didn't spot that as one of his reasons.
Come on.
But he tells the story.
That was literally off the top of my head. You didn't put that in your article?
No. This is more the tone of the article.
Cowardly. That's the tone. Go on.
I adopted him on Valentine's Day, him being his dog Jake, on Valentine's Day 2011 as a surprise gift to add to a furry celebration of love to the relationship with my other half. Just a few months later, I went through a perfect storm of events that ultimately left me homeless and living in a tent in the national forest with my dog.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So he fell on hard times, and that's one of the reasons why he started his non-profit when he got back on his feet was to...
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. So he, had a perfect storm. The article goes into it a little bit more, but, he broke up with his girlfriend because there was infidelity. On
his part? Or her part?
It was kind of ambiguous, but leaning towards being her.
It was the dog. I had to say it.
Yeah. Well, he got to keep the dog. It was a gift for her.
Exactly. Oh boy, you got to keep it.
And then his landlord, he frames it as sort of unceremoniously kicked them out, and he was left with nothing, which is sad.
It is sad, but he managed to bounce back.
Yeah. And then there's his interviews are a little bit odd.
Should we interview him? Special Simon, welcome aboard. I'd love to talk to you. You sound like a kooky guy.
So, as mentioned, he changed his name.
Yes, I've been on the edge of my seat about this.
Okay, so this was his answer when in an interview he was asked, so what happened?
What happened? Did you have to run away from the IRS or something?
And this is his response. I legally changed my first name in or around 2002 for several reasons. Perhaps most primarily, the name Timmy/Timothy is what I feel like a very diminutive name in our society. Think about it. Tiny Tim, Little Timmy, and Lassie, oh poor Timmy. I just felt it was a name that didn't resonate with who I am at all.
Okay.
Also, there were some weird fan letters I got kind of scary ones
Fair
from
enough.
pedophile types.
Yep. Child actors, yep.
So it was a way to separate from that. I did not choose to change my last name out of wanting to respect my heritage and my father. And since I'm estranged from my whole mother's side of the family, it seemed silly to keep the name my mother gave me that I never liked.
Yep.
When it became clear that she no longer cared about maintaining a healthy relationship with me.
Fair enough.
So, like many Native American cultures
Oh.
who send out their young men on a vision quest
Oh.
to find their identity and purpose,
Oh, no.
the name Trevor
Oh, what a name.
found me
Oh, it found you, all right.
in a similar rite of passage. And it resonates. And I own it. And those around me say it really fits.
Oh, I was with you there, Trevor, for a moment, but then you lost me. And you fucking lost. He went on a walkabout. He met himself.
This man loves an ellipses. Like,
Well, he has to think. He's thinking when he says he's...
He has that, but also, there's an ellipses in the name of his non-profit.
Oh.
It starts with an ellipses.
Oh, like a Neil Breen movie. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much for that, Trevor. Clever Trevor, I'm going to call you. Oh, Trevor. I know you found it, Rachel, but I'm thanking Trevor himself for giving me a lot of feelings in his performance, in his life, in his interviews, in his words. Oh, Trevor, come on the podcast. We'll talk about your time with B5. I would love to know what it was like to work with Robin Atkin Downs. What was it like to have Richard Biggs look at you and say, why the hell doesn't he talk? I loved, by the way, that Franklin is continuing being just a doctor who cares about the physical things, not the mental at all.
Yeah.
He's
No
not a psychiatrist or psychologist. He's not a counselor. Franklin is Mr. Get over it. Now let me fix you with my medical technology. Perfect. No notes.
I fix what's broken.
I met myself when I went on a walkabout. Just like, thank you, Trevor.
We know he endured some terrible trauma during those years. We've never asked. When he chooses to speak of it, he will.
And if he doesn't?
Then he alone will bear the pain of it. But we are here for him if he should ever change his mind.
If you had to rate No Compromises on a scale of Yum being bad and Yum being good, which is an impossible thing to do with an episode that has Special Simon in it, I'm still
Yum.
Wow, so confident in that Yum.
You?
Oh, it's a Yum.
So we'll be up to a very exciting episode next on the podcast, The Very Long Night of Londo Malari. But please, Rachel, tell us all what will be happening next time on Babylon 5.
On the next Babylon 5.
He's haughty and defiant. But his heart betrays him. A severe cardiac crisis plunges Ascendant Centauri Emperor Malari into an eerie dreamscape that forces him to confront his mistreatment of the nuns.
Ooh, baby.
Oh, it's so good!
That is the next episode, and we will be here to discuss it and make sure that you give it a watch in the meantime, as well as follow us on your social media of choice, rate and review the podcast, and if you have a few extra dollary dues, that's what we call dollars down here in Australia, support us on Patreon. We are talking about so much stuff on there, as well as we have a group Discord that you get to be a part of. If you want to hear us talk about The Expanse, we are watching it for the first time, come on over to the Patreon. And that is it. That is all. Jakar was here. He was very vocal.
He did talk about eating.
He did talk about eating, but he did not say,
let's eat.
But is that the new good eating to you? He's being a bit more casual, a little bit more informal about how he says
He's
good
being
eating
less
to you.
non about it.
He's lost his Naan ship. I've got to take away the Naan. That is Commander Lieutenant Naan D from Star Trek Discovery, who said, yum yum. I'm sorry, she's not a lieutenant.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye, Special Rachel. Good eating to you, Special Rachel.